Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to our primary now, all this clutch stuff. So right off the bat, we're looking at this chain here, and it's a bad chain. This thing got all jammed up in the inside with something here. You can see I tried to break the chain in half. So you can all see how the chain's all knotted up. So that's a sure sign things are getting ready to break. You can see how much clearance is in this roller. It's got a lot in there. So it tells me that the plates are actually separating apart. So it's definitely getting ready to break. So I'm going to go ahead and take this chain out, pop it around. So to do that, we'll just undo these two screws here. This thing comes apart, the shoe comes out, and we're going to swap the chain out and put it back together. And there's supposed to be a lock tab right here that holds this in, and we'll have to get a new lock tab, it looks like, too. So I'll go ahead and swap this out. Alright, here's my new primary chain. Here's the chain shoe. Here's our new lock tab, and here's the old lock tab laying on here. The reason I use the lock tabs on these is because usually you have oil all over these and the Loctite don't stick to oil, and it's just a good safety thing on this because you can't really tighten this down because it's just plastic. So it's always going to be semi-loose. Now this one here has quite a bit of wear here where the plates have been rubbing but not the rollers. So in my opinion this is still just getting broken in so you can even use it. Until these rollers hit along here, that's the center part of your chain up in here, it's going to keep eating away pretty quickly until the roller comes in. It'll stabilize and wear for a long time. So until you get worn a bit more than this, it's still going to, you still have to keep an eye on your chain tension. So I actually like them when they actually show wear across the middle here just a little bit. So this one is still perfectly fine, just not even quite broken in yet to be normal use. So that's how I do that. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lock tab on this and tighten this up, and then we can go ahead and put this thing together. So we'll just go ahead and let you watch, and if you don't like watching, move forward. Okay. Already screwing up. Doesn't take long. You also want to make sure that this is relatively straight and not too bent up when you're looking at these. If these plates get all bent up, just straighten them out a little bit. So, no big thing. It's always nice when the camera's not even looking at what I'm working on. There you go. Alright, I'll leave this loose until I get it fully adjusted up in the bike. Everything wears what it should be. Okay, so this is pretty much ready to go into the bike. We'll throw this lock tab in the junk box. The rest of his good parts. Okay, now we're going to move up into our primary cover here, and mainly the clutch area, right over there. So we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of Loctite on this keyway right here. So here's the key that was in it. And for some reason it looks like they've been doing some sanding or grinding on this key, so I assume it sticks up a little bit too high. So I'm going to put sleeve retainer Loctite on the taper. I'll put red Loctite on that. And lock tabs I don't like here because they just twist them out anyway from over torquing. So I'm going to go ahead and Loctite up and do that. Already had all this on here before and it doesn't really hit very evenly. You can see where it hits on the inside there only and not the outside. It's not really a good match. Here's the clicking in there. So if I over torque the piss out of it, it might be a little bit better, but probably not much. So you also want to make sure all these studs are tight, which they are. So right now, another thing we wouldn't hurt to check, which I didn't do yet, is make sure that our plates actually slide over the studs and there's no bent studs. So this one's not too bad once you get down here, a little bit tight right here. So after I put together, I might play with it a little bit. We'll see. Alright, let's go ahead and get this together. There's my good Loctite. Here's the good stuff. Now make sure you keep this out of the bearing area. Definitely not what you want to be putting in there. I like putting the key at the very top so you know where it is. So it's a lot easier to get the hub on there without kicking the key out. Put a little bit of Loctite on it also. Look at it. It doesn't look like it's sticking out very high to me. Yeah. Looks like they ground it off for no reason to me. Okay, I put a lot of Loctite here inside of the taper. Normally I don't do this, but when you got a big gap like this, the Loctite will fill in the gap a little bit. Okay, so that was our green Loctite. That over there. Now we got a red Loctite. Put that on the threads for the nut. Decent amount on there. And put a little bit of grease on the end of the pusher out here. Lubricates the seal and the screw. Adjustment screw, that is. Okay, now when you push this on here, you want to make sure that the key stays in its groove. So you got to kind of feel it and look in there. And this one just slipped right in there like nothing. So that was pretty easy. Probably because it's been trimmed. I always go double check in here. You look right down in there and you make sure the key is visible. So see how the key is visible? And into the keyway there. Yeah, light. Figure out what you want to do. So the key is visible, so that means the key is in its correct spot. If you had a gap in there, or just you looked at the corner of a key, that means the key is jammed up in there. And that will not let the clutch hub be where it's supposed to be. Alright, so after we do that, we go ahead and take our nut right here, and we stick it on there. And this is a backwards thread, so that means you gotta tighten it, loosen it to tighten it. That means run your air impact in reverse. Okay. Now I like to over torque the stuff so it's good and tight. So you hold on to it and torque it. That's pretty good torque. Spin it, make sure it's not wobbling. Looks like it's turning relatively true. They're never perfect. This one's not too bad. So that's on there good. Now if you had a lock tab, you go in there and put the lock tab on it right now. The problem with lock tabs when you torque them up like I just did there, it just rotates and tears the tabs right off, so they don't do anything. They're just cosmetic. Alright, so we got that part in. We got our clutch basket right here. Now this was all dry, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little lubricant on the bearings and inside the clutch basket itself. Right here. So at least there's a little bit of oil in here, or in this case grease, until the thing runs for a little while. We're going to put some grease or some oil in the primary, but I want to make sure it has something in there when you first start it, not wait for it to get into it. So, don't need a lot on here, just a little bit, just to get a little bit on the rollers. When they quit wobbling around and you listen to them rattle, that means you got grease on them. If they're still rattling, you don't have grease on them yet. So now you don't hear them rattling no more because they got grease on them. Alright. Pretty straightforward. Well, the other thing I like doing, I like to put a little bit of grease up on the motor sprocket shaft up here, up on the threads. When I torque this down, I tend to over torque it like everything else I do. The rusted grease right there on the push rod. Okay, now we got to make sure we got our motor sprocket spacer right here. This one takes a stock shim, which is 60 thou. They make these in different thicknesses to compensate for your offset of your chain drive. And I already previously put the hub on here and the motor sprocket. We're going to use a solid early style one here for a hot rod motor. And I double checked it and I run it straight across the teeth of the sprocket here. Make sure they line up with the clutch basket when you got to lay it up on there. So stuff you got to double check. It's usually fairly close, but you always got to check. Okay, let's get the grease out of the way. And the easiest way to do this is to go ahead and put the chain on your basket. Like that. And then I take my sprocket, stick it up in there like that. I'm just going to set it up in there. Okay. Now I have not put it up on the bearing area, I just got it laid on the studs. I try to go ahead and get this motor sprocket on the spline right now while I can feel it. There it goes. Okay, I'm pushing on just a little bit to make sure it's up on there. Let me go ahead and put the nut up on there. Make sure it doesn't fall off the spline. Okay. Now you take your basket, slide it up on that. Make sure it's all the way in. Make sure this all rotates freely. So you can see how the basket's not really wobbling very much at all, so that's a good sign. And you take your inner nut up here for your primary tensioner. And you lift it up with your fingers and get it started while you're at it here. Okay, a little bit closer so you can see all these things I just did. So, first thing, we got the motor sprocket up on here. We bring the nut up so it stays put. You want to make sure you start those splines before you jam this nut on, because you could always you can jam the splines on top of each other instead of down the center like they should be. We got this up all the way up against our pressure plate in there. You know you're close because you can see the gap between here and there is pretty close. Then I got my nut up in here I held up and got the tensioner adjusted or screw in there now. So you can go ahead and take that up a little bit if you want, just lightly hold it. We haven't adjusted anything yet, but it's just initially put it up. Remember, we still got these screws loose here, bolts. So that's how much play we got right now. Now I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up with my air impact here. And we already got this one tight. So my rag disappeared here. There it is. Grease all over my fingers. Keep your fingers clean, your tools clean, you don't get all greasy when you work. Okay, this is a standard nut, so you tighten this one. There we go. And this one here is 1 3/8" is the thread size. I mean the socket size. Okay, when it quits moving, you're good. The motor starts turning over a little bit, you know you got a lot of torque on it. Okay, see how much looser the chain is now? Because now it's in there straight. Okay, I go ahead and loosen, bring that up. Get this out of the way. Okay, I want to just lightly tighten that up. Then we come down and tighten up these lower screws. Bring them down kind of evenly. Okay. And they both got some torque on them. And then put a little bit of torque, but not too much because all of this plastic, you're just compressing plastic. So you're going to kind of just feel what you want it to be. Okay, I got the torque tab where I want it. Okay, so I just torqued them down until I got the lock tab right here, the flats right here on both sides, so I can pull this one in on this side and that one evenly there. I don't like these sticking out. They tend to poke me and make me bleed. So I'm going to go ahead and bend these over. We look at our tension. Our tension's pretty good right now. So for roughly, this is good for a new chain. It'll change quite a bit when we start running the bike. I'm going to go ahead and put the clutch plates in here now, and then I'll go ahead and check my primary chain. And we'll go ahead and go, this one has a kicker on it, so I'll kick the motor through, and I'll feel this as I go around the circle. And if it stays at this tension all the way around, I'm good. If it gets tighter, I'm going to loosen up one notch. If it gets really loose, I'll probably still leave it here because this is the tight spot. But you just have to check it in the whole circle to make sure everything's good. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and work on our clutch. I actually got to tighten. Next thing I do is put these tabs down. Always finish whatever you started so you don't forget. Instead of going on a clutch, let's just finish what we're doing. So we're bending over these lock tabs is what we're doing right now. Okay, they're over. Then we go ahead and tighten down our chain tensioner nut. Just a pretty good torque on it. Okay, so now we have to worry about that being loose. It's tight. You don't want to have that thing come loose when you're riding the bike. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put our clutch together here. Okay, this bike here is a hot rod bike, so we actually have 6 plates. So we got 5 Kevlar plates in here, which are these green ones. And then we got 1 carbon plate here. I'll put that toward the outside, and I'll put the Kevlars on the inner ones. And this here is your Barnett plates that don't have any spring tabs up here to rattle, and these also have the 6 full slots on them. So all 6 will be pulling both under load and deceleration. This is a big hot rod 98-inch motor, so it'll accelerate and decelerate very quickly. So. Make sure it's good. You also want to make sure these are all flat, so you kind of look at them from the side, make sure everything's flat. Then I take and I flip every other one over, so that gives you all the other surfaces to look at. And you check it again and see how it's still flat, so that means these plates are not warped. The other thing you do is you look at the surface and make sure there's nothing really gouged up on them. These all look good. Okay. These 4-speed bikes, the fiber plate goes in first, so you stick that in. We want to make sure it goes over the studs easily. If there's any binding in here, we're going to have to straighten the studs or file the plates a little bit, so that's nice and free. If these things aren't nice and free, then the clutch is going to drag. Now on stock plates, it'll have it marked out up here someplace because the way the spring tabs are, it matters. These do not matter how they go in, so you can do anything you want with them. Universal plate, anything works. Same on these, it doesn't matter how they go in, these fibers. So we just check everyone as we go in, make sure they're free. Everything's nice. So that one there, once it gets in there, is free. See how it goes back and forth. It's a little tight on the outer studs, but once it's in there, we're good. Same deal on that one. See how this plate's got a lot of wear on it right here in the dog? It means it's been getting abused on something. My guess is this might have been the first plate in there. It shows some damage from that application. So we'll stick that in here. Well, I know what it's from. It ain't from that. Here's what our problem is. This clutch hub has round dogs on it instead of square dogs. Each of these things are square. These are rounded. So what's happening is this outer plate here is hitting on this round part here, and it's trying to come apart. So this clutch basket's not really a good candidate for a 6-plate clutch because the dogs are made wrong. So this plate's alright as long as I put it inside the stack, so we'll put it inside the stack here. And we'll put the wear part out to the outside so it won't matter. Yeah, you can see how close we're getting here on our last plate. Actually, I still got more plates to go here. There we go. Okay, that plate's starting to get kind of tight, but it fits in freely once it's there. Yeah, definitely starting to get tight. Okay, so this plate here is a nice plate, but you can see how this one's getting worn right here also. So, and you can see what the problem is right here. There's just almost nothing to grab a hold of on this clutch, so this bike might not work too good. You can see how it's just barely on these. So I'll have to tell the customer that this clutch might not work in this bike. One more thing that needs to be looked into later. We're trying to get this thing together for the summer. We've got a whole list of stuff we got to fix when it shuts down for winter time. The clutch is just one more of them. What I got to be careful of is if this thing is going to be a problem here. Okay, right now there's so little engagement on there. I'm not sure if it's going to work all that good. Not very nice. Alright, so that's all on there like that. I got a steel plate here. It's a pressure plate. I usually like putting the aluminum ones in there because they're flat. These ones here are usually not very flat. This one actually isn't too bad. Check it with my straight edge here. This one's actually pretty good. Now this has an offset 3 pattern. So if you look at it now, we got the wide space studs are on the top. So see how the wide ones are on the top. You can also see how little engagement we got on that plate right there. Okay, so now we got this here goes with the wide spot up. And it goes right on, no problem. If you're in the wrong spot, it doesn't do that. Okay, these nuts have a flat spot in them, groove, and that engages in there. That's what makes them go clink, clink, clink when you turn them. It also locks them so they don't unscrew when you're riding the bike around, which is always a good thing. I can't adjust the clutch completely today because I don't have the clutch lever hooked up there yet. I'll have to get up there and work on that, I guess, next. I can adjust the clutch. Come on. This one's being a pain. Could be I'm using my left hand late at night. I don't think that makes any difference. So your mechanic, you got to be able to use both your hands, not just one. Alright, now in this type of application, your minimum gauge or adjustment on these is a 31/32 of an inch. So let me get over here, we can maybe see this. Let me blow this up a little bit. So basically that would be 970 thousandths. We're at 850 right now. So these little lines here, put it this way. This big line right here is 1 inch. The next line down is 1/32. So the pressure plate needs to be at that dimension. So right now the clutch is partially disengaged, but that's because I don't have my adjuster undone yet. This is the tool here that allows you to take this off as a unit. There's that big washer. You can also use upper valve collars too, off of cars or something. That's the adjustment screw there. I'll just roughly put this in there. There, that's close enough for now. So now we take our wrench here and pop these in. You hear it goes pop. Pull that back a little bit. Okay, make sure they're all in the groove. Okay, now we come up here and look at our dimension that we were just looking at before. Oop. Hard to get this up here, we can see it. So right now we're at a 1/16 of an inch in, so we're 1/32 too far. Got to get the camera over here, we can see it better. There we go. So we're actually a little bit more than that. So I'm going to back these off one turn. That'd be 2 clicks, 2 flats. 1, 2. And this one here. 1 and 2. Now we come up here and look at our number. And let's see, I'm on the wrong side. And we can see that we're right there at our 31/32 now on that spot. So now we go over here to the other side. And look at this one. Okay, our bolts right here. And this one here, you can see we're at 1 inch. So we need to go down one notch. There's 1 notch. Okay, we look at it, and looks like we can probably go 1 more notch. 1 more notch. Let's see here. And that time it went too far. Oop, get back up there. So we'll take that notch back out of it. Okay, now we go down and read this other one down here. That's a little bit harder to do because it's on the bottom, but that's why we go under here like this. Let me blow that up so you can see and I can see. Because the camera's where my head should be. That light's kind of a pain in the butt going back and forth, isn't it? Yeah. We were going to be in the dark or we're going to be in the light? I'm going to be in the dark. Okay, from what I can see in the camera there, it looks like we're about 1 notch too far. So about 1 notch. Look at it again. And I think we're right at 1 inch now. We're pretty close, give or take 1. All right. Let me go back up here and look at this one again. See if this one moved. And what a shocker, it did move. So we'll pull that 1 notch back out of that one. That looks good. Can't see that one very well over there. And this one here looks good also. Okay, so they're all about the same now. Now, if I had the clutch cable hooked up there, up that lever way up there in the air, and those nice short handlebars, I'd have to be about 8 feet tall to work out from this angle. We'll go ahead and pull the clutch in and out. We look at this pressure plate, and if this pressure plate does not come out evenly, we go ahead and adjust these nuts a little bit until this pressure plate comes in and out equally. And you rotate it 108 or not 100. You rotate it 90 degrees and you check it again. And ideally, when you pull it in, you should be able to turn this with your hand. If not, then it drags, and it'll probably drag you across the intersection too. So for now, I can't do any further than that. So tomorrow I'll have to play with that. We're done here for the night. So anyway, that's what it looks like. The primary's all up in there. We got our chain in it. Clutch is now more or less in. Oil tank's in. Starter's in. Got our battery box in. Got our alternator, our regulator all in today. So got a lot of stuff done. I also got the top motor mount all put up in here, which I didn't say earlier, but it's all up in there. And then I also ported out that intake manifold that was laying around here someplace, right over here. So I'll go ahead and get that up in here tomorrow, and you can see how that's going to be a nice performance application there. Come on, light. Stupid light works when it wants to. I want you to work now. So you see how everything lines up really nice. Unlike Evo bikes and twin cams, the damn manifolds don't line up for crap. This stuff here, you can actually make it line up really good if you want to take the time to put the heads in square. So anyway, we did that. I didn't do anything on these heads here. They're roughly ported before, so. But I wanted to fix this manifold. They had all that prick marks in that damn thing. I also resurfaced this gasket surface so that it'll be nice and flat, so it'll seal. Alright, so we'll work on this tomorrow.